Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nailina Suha binti Ahmad Nazari. My ID is 2090-290204 and my class is JSC 2204A. Okay, I will present about the purchase and a payment cycle. Okay, for the introduction, the acquisition and payment cycle also refer to as a PPP cycle for purchase, payable and payments consists of mainly two classes of the transaction. Okay, for the first class is acquisition class, and a typical journal entry for this class of the transaction is a debit to inventory or expenses and credit to account payable. Okay, for the second class of the transaction is acquisition and a payment cycle in the cash disbursement class. It's a simply a debit to account payable and a credit to cash. So this cycle is mainly about incurring payable and paying off those payable with the cash. Okay, for the account and the classes of the transaction that will be related in this cycle, it would be acquisition of the goods and services, a cash disbursement and purchase return, allowance and purchase discount. Okay, for the business function in the cycle, it would be involved in the processing purchase order, receiving goods and services, recognizing the liability, processing and recording cash disbursement. Okay, for the process and document that would be related in the cycle, okay, first is a processing purchase order. It will be purchase requisition and purchase order. For the second one is a receiving and services, would be a receiving report. Okay, for the third is recognizing the liability. It would be a vendor's invoice, a debit memo, a voucher, acquisition transaction file, acquisition journal or listing, account payable master file. So for the four is processing and recording cash disbursement. It will be involved on the cash disbursement, transaction file, cash disbursement journal, or listing. Okay. This is the flow chart of this cycle. Start from the user department to purchase department, receiving and store, and after that will be accounts department. Okay, for the assertion and objective. In the purchase transaction, it will be occurrence, recorded purchase for a good and services receiving or provided. So, completeness, all existing purchase transaction are recorded. For accuracy, recorded purchase are correctly recorded for the amount, good or services that will be received. Okay, in a payment transaction, in occurrence will be record cash payment or a goods or services actually received. So completeness, all existing cash payment are recorded. Accuracy and also a cash payment to supplier are recorded at the amount we paid. Okay, task of control and a task of substantive. So internal control for the purchase and any payment cycle is mainly concerned about the following aspect. For instance, for like a proper authorization for purchases, separation of asset custody from the other functions, a timely recording and independent checking of purchase and a payment transaction. Okay, for the last one is a proper authority for the payment. Okay, first we throw for the task of control for the classes purchases. Okay, first is assertion for occurrence. Internal control will be purchase provided at the appropriate level. Internal verification of a relevant document such as a purchase requisition, purchase order, supply invoice, and a good service note. For the test will be examine for the proper approval for the purchase requisition, purchase order, goods received notes, and examine for indication of internal verification of this document. For the completeness will be purchase requisition, purchase order, receiving report and vouchers are pre-numbered and accounted for. Okay, for the account for numerical sequences, purchase order and goods receiving notes, it will be trace a sample of a good receiving notes to the related supplier invoice and the entry in the purchase journal. So for the accuracy, it would be a proof price, terms, discount, internal verification of the calculation amount of supplier invoice will be tasked on examine proper approval for a purchase requisition and purchase order. It will be examine indication of internal verification to recording the purchase transaction. For the class of the payment, it also will be occurrence. So it indicate a segregation of duty between the handling the cash and the maintaining the account payable record for examination and approval of supporting document before the check will be signed. So it will be test on observation of segregation of duties and independent reconciliation of bank balance. Okay, for the second one is a completeness. Will be check are pre-numbered and accounted for. So bank reconciliation is prepared by the staff and involved in the recording cash payment and custody of asset. It will be test of account for the sequence of a check and examine bank reconciliation. So accuracy is regular preparation and review of the bank reconciliation that will be prepared by independent person. So it will be test of review periodic bank reconciliation that prepared by the independent person and examine evidence for the internal verification. Okay, the test of substantive. Okay, first will be test for a purchase transaction. For the assertion occurrence will be selected sample from the purchase journal and the trace to purchase requisition will be purchase order, supplier invoice and good received note. Completeness will be trace a good received notes, supplier invoice to entry in purchase journal and account payable ledger. For the accuracy, for voucher detail of supplier invoice to related purchase requisition, purchase order and a good received notes and trace a supplier invoice to record purchases. Okay, test for the payment transaction in occurrences, a trace from the cash payment journal to the bank statement. For the completeness, trace a good received note, supplier invoice to entry in the purchase journal and account payable ledger. For the accuracy, a trace from a cash payment journal to supplier invoice and to the bank statement. Okay, the possibility evidence that can be gathered by the auditor in for the purchase order, it will be a photocopy from the of the evidence, such as a photocopy of a client purchase order. For the vendor invoice, it will be original form of evidence, such as an original supplier's invoice. For the bank is external evidence, such as a bank statement issued by the client bank. Okay. The possibility misstatement that may occur in purchase and a payment cycle, it would be a misclassification, repair and maintenance expenses and a fixed asset. So auditor often reduce the tolerable exception rate, especially for the classification attribute. So need significant judgment. This judgment required a result in increase the likelihood or misstatement. So auditor often will reduce the tolerable exception rate for the accuracy attribute and the amount of the individual transaction. In the cycle, it covers the wide range. So auditor is commonly segregation the large and unusual item and test them on the 100% of the basis. So that's the end. Thank you.